And it's just basketball. At the end of the day, it's just basketball.
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe on the way and adore my people. I hope you all are having a truly, truly fantastic day today. I want to thank each and every person who supports this channel, not only supports this channel, but supports all the independent content creators who make it a point to deliver takes with integrity and honesty. And I truly cannot thank you guys enough for being able to hit 10,000 subscribers. Fanboys, I thank you guys as well for being delusional enough to think that you can come over here and defend your king. So you guys get some thanks as well. No respect, but I thank you. So we're going to get to the super thanks today. And without further ado, let's get right into this because we got quite a few to get through. This video is probably going to get kind of long. So first up, shout out to Keith Brazell 6909. This is coming from my LeBron James thanks Michael Jordan for inspiration after he broke the most 30-point games record, which in actuality he didn't, because in order to get to 40 and 50 and 60, you got to get to 30 points first. So LeBron, you still got a long way to go. But anyway, he comes through with the $20 super thanks. He says, thanks. I would like you to explain some F-boy logic. And no, the F doesn't stand for fanboy. But I respect you keeping it family friendly. LOL. But anyways, every once in a while, I will scroll through Shorts video and see one talking about MJ. Not comparing him to anyone, not knocking anybody else, just about MJ. And almost every time, someone has to bring up LeBron. And most time, they like to say he wouldn't have won anything without Pippen, of course, or Rodman, or Phil, or Kerr, or the freaking water boy, or whoever. And they always say it in a way to try to diminish his legacy. I try and think where I have heard that before. Oh yeah, MJ says the same thing, of course. This is what's so confusing about those guys, is MJ has said he doesn't win 6 without Scotty. MJ has said this himself on multiple occasions. So you fanboys throwing it out there like this is some kind of revelation. Anyway, let's continue. So what's the point? Or is there even a point? Sometimes I think it's about listing all the people that help get sometimes I think about listing all the people that help LeBalco, LeFraud, LeUseless, waste of space James, but I only have a 30-minute lunch break and honestly don't know if my phone plan will let me text that much. So I decided to list the people he gives credit to for his success. So here it is, ... Okay, I'm done. Gee, that was easy. What are your thoughts? Keep learning these F-boys. Peace. Shout out to Keith Brazell 6909. So, yeah, I mean, I think everything he said in this is something we're very familiar with. And it's not new news at this point. With them trying to, somehow diminish Michael Jordan by saying he couldn't have won without such and such. Ironically, their king has played with much more help than any other superstar has played with. But this is not new news at all. But I think what will go perfectly with this comment here is another comment from another viewer. Now, I came across this comment yesterday while I was reading through a few of the comments, and this right here explains fanboy logic very well. So shout out to Mr. Curdy Kurt. Now, this is coming from the video I put out about the thing they never talk about LeBron, and when I say they, I mean mainstream media, and that is about his lack of leadership being the reason why he supposedly always needs help, is because he doesn't know how to actually get the best out of anybody, because he doesn't know how to get the best out of himself. But shout out to Mr. Curdy Kurt for this comment. He says, LeBron doesn't get the most out of his teams. This is the objective truth at the heart of LeBron's failures. But it's a truth that you can't prove or disprove with data. This is the kind of stuff that fanboys love to dismiss. If you can't prove it with numbers, it's convenient for fanboys to look over it. But let's continue. He said, but it's a truth that seems excruciatingly clear to anyone looking at him through an objective lens. I mean, his championships were the result of him being able to stack teams that simply out-talented the rest of the league. Of course, this is painfully unclear to a visionist historian, because they're pay attention to this part, people. This sums up fanboy logic really nicely. Fanboys, listen to the truth about yourselves. He says, their logic begins with their conclusion that LeBron is the greatest ever and work their way back from there. Let me read that one more time. He says, their logic begins with their conclusion that LeBron is the greatest ever and work their way back from there. This sums up fanboy logic perfectly. In other words, unlike previous GOATs, unlike Michael Jordan, where we watched him come in, where we saw the potential, but nobody was calling him the GOAT until the evidence was solidly there. Till we saw that, hey, this guy is more skilled, this guy's more athletic, this guy's will to win is unmatched, and eventually followed by championships. And when all the evidence came in, Michael Jordan was said to be the GOAT. But this is not the logic of LeBron James fanboys. LeBron James fanboys are going off of the media narrative put out there that LeBron James is the GOAT. So because this is their starting point, that LeBron James is the GOAT, and to work their way backwards, then this is where all the excuses come from. Because he already is the GOAT in their mind, then in order to justify it, everything has to be everyone else's fault. If he doesn't win, it's the coach's fault. It's the team's fault, because LeBron is the GOAT. It's not the other way around. It's not LeBron James actually made his teammates better and he won and therefore he's the GOAT. They're already starting with the notion that he's the GOAT because they're delusional and they follow mainstream media, and they don't have any ability to do research for themselves and think for themselves. So they buy into this notion that, okay, someone said it, LeBron James himself said it, so he is the GOAT, so we'll work our way back and make excuses for everything that would disprove the fact that he's the GOAT. So yeah, shout out to Curdy Kurt. To me, that is the perfect explanation to fanboy logic, and I thought that would go great with shout out to Keith Brazell 6909 again. I thought that was a great explanation of the fanboy logic. So anyway, shout out to Keith Brazell. Thank you so much for the $20 super thanks. Thank you so very much for your continued support of the channel. Next up, shout out to @ThanosSnap Feminism. This is coming from my Scottie Pippins. Thinks he still gets those 6 rings without Michael Jordan. He comes through with the $2 super thanks. He said Scottie does get 6 rings without MJ. Of course, in this world, Space Jam 2 and House Party 4 is better than their predecessors. Exactly. Shout out to @ThanosSnapFeminism. Thanks so much for the $2 super thanks. Thank you so very much for your continued support of the channel. Next up, this is coming from the same video about Scottie Pippen. Shout out to @SwanDaily. Coming through with the $2 super thanks. He says, great video as usual. Since you brought up the fact that Pippen isn't a killer, what advice do you have for people who aren't killers? Having a MJ or Kobe mindset is rare. So I thought this would be an interesting philosophical question. Most people who try to be MJ, Kobe, David Goggins, or anyone of that ilk tend to lose consistency really quickly. That's actually a good question. And I honestly don't think that I believe a certain amount of it is you have to be born that way. And then honestly, not just from the mindset standpoint, from the physical standpoint. Like Michael Jordan is known to have one of the greatest motors in the history of sports. And what I mean by, motor is just that ability to keep going. It's said that MJ didn't sleep and, would still come to practice like he's playing game 7 of the finals. Well, he doesn't know what a game 7 is like, but playing game 6 of the finals. They talked about him on the dream team, them staying playing cards all night and everybody else is dragging in practice and MJ is like up and ready to go. So part of it, I think, is like the physical gifts of having a motor like that. Someone who doesn't get talked about in that same sense, but obviously had to have a motor like, or similar, not like MJ, because again, but I would say similar to MJ, and that is Kobe Bryant. If you hear the stories about not only Kobe's work ethic, but Kobe didn't seem to sleep that much either. And so I think you have to have a motor to keep that kind of consistency in terms of being on all the time. Now, just in terms of the killer mentality itself, I think you can work on it, but I don't know, for people who don't have it naturally, I don't know how close to an MJ or Kobe mindset you could actually get to, because that is something, again, I really think we're talking about, if we're being honest, probably more like an illness. It's arguable that it's more of a mental illness than something to strive for, because number one, not everybody can reach that level of greatness, like that level of dominance, that you're talking about with MJ. I mean, again, people talk about these random stats of MJ, but when you talk about them collectively as one, it's really, it's otherworldly. It's just really out of this, I mean, think about someone who arguably the greatest athlete, arguably the most aesthetically pleasing game, arguably the most mentally dominant, the most mentally challenging player to play against, truly the will to never give up. As a matter of fact, I did a video about Phil Jackson saying that Michael Jordan actually liked being in the middle of the storm. And I've said this before, so to see that article with Phil Jackson basically confirming what I felt about that, and that is Michael Jordan, more than anybody else, seemed to thrive in those clutch moments. He seemed to thrive, like he seemed like he got a rush from being in those moments and seeing if he could, and maintaining that poise, because he handled those situations unlike anybody else. So having that, and then you're talking about the championships with the 6-0, and the never allowing a game 6 is something not to be taken lightly as well. And then you're talking about the fact that between 91 and 98, he won, 25 out of 26 playoff series. Between that same time, they never lost 3 games in a row. I mean, you're talking about just some really incredible, ridiculous stuff here. And I think it starts with the mind. So I don't know if you weren't born with that kind of mindset, and then to have it cultivated through whatever life circumstances and family upbringing that you had during the most important years of your life, which determine who you are for the rest of your life. I don't know if that's something you can develop, especially if you're talking about later on in life. I think that's something that happens early on that triggers that in you. And I think part of it has to be just born in you to begin with. So yeah, I don't know if that's really something that can be cultivated to that degree, which is why people tend to lose consistency really quickly. I think that is the thing. It's like people try to, but that is a daunting task to try to maintain that mental edge all the time, because I guess here's the difference is other people are trying to maintain that edge. Michael Jordan, this is just the way he thinks. Like, this is what he thrives off of. You know, this is the reason he lives, is to compete. And so if you don't have that to be trying to maintain excellence, so to speak, you're not going to be able to do it. Because as I've said on this channel many times, to me, it's the intent behind everything you do. It's like, what is your motivation for doing something that's going to determine the outcome? And you can have the motivation to be great. That's one thing. You know, you can have a motivation like LeBron James. He wants to be the GOAT, but he doesn't understand what made Jordan the GOAT is the fact that Jordan had a need to dominate people. He had a need to dominate competition. And that's a different mindset. I don't know if Jordan was ever thinking about being the GOAT. He was simply thinking about dominating opponents on a nightly basis. So it's all about the motivation behind what you do. And if your motivation is to be great or to have consistency, and, you know, to consistently perform well, you're going to be falling short to the person who has a deep-seated need to dominate all the time. Again, we're talking about something that's arguably clinical. Like, we're talking about something that's very well probably more of a mental illness. But shout out to @Swan Daily. Thank you so much for the $2 super thanks. Thank you so very much for your continued support of the channel. And next up, shout out to @GNoLows310. This is coming from Scottie Pippen says he is the GOAT on the Patrick Bet David podcast. And he comes through with the $5 super thanks, and he simply says thanks. Shout out to @GNoLows. Thank you so much for the $5 super thanks. And thank you so much for your continued support of the channel. Next up, shout out to Phenomenal Fitness coming through with the $5 super thanks. And this is on my reaction to Michael Jordan 2003 All-Star Game pre-game interview. And he comes through to simply say, congratulations on reaching 10K, my brother. Hey, thanks so much. And matter of fact, if you guys are not subscribed to Phenomenal Fitness, please go over there and subscribe. He is another warrior in this war on falsehoods and does great content over there. So if you are not following Phenomenal Fitness, please go over there and give him a sub. Shout out again to Phenomenal Fitness. Thanks so much for the $5 super thanks. Next up, shout out to @G the Great One. This is coming from my Rob Parker goes off on LeBron James and Anthony Davis for needing more help. And he comes through with the $2 super thanks. He says, LeBron always needs more help. He always needs an unfair advantage to win. He always has a built-in excuse ready. I don't understand how so many males, in quotations, can make excuses every day for another man who raised these guys. LeBron is the worst role model that these children coming up could have. He represents everything wrong with the NBA. Facts. I could not imagine coming up with an excuse every time I made a mistake or didn't win at something. That sounds crazy. Indeed, it should sound crazy, but somehow to the fanboys, it doesn't sound crazy. I wonder why. I wonder why, fanboys. I wonder why you guys don't find that suspicious. Could it be that you do the exact same thing? Sometimes in life, the other person is just better. You have to have some things that you need to work on. How hard is it to admit that? I will never understand these guys who make the excuses for LeBron. He doesn't even have to say anything at this point. The Lakers are loaded with talent. The problem is their so-called leader. Facts, facts, and facts. If you take LeBron off the team and swap him out with any of the other top 15 players in the league, the Lakers would be competing for a championship. No question. Keep the content coming. And I love the new intro. Shout out to @G_the_Great_One for that fantastic comment full of truth. This whole thing, you know, I just did a video. I just did a video talking about this yesterday. With the whole problem is LeBron James is not a leader. This is the problem. Anything that LeBron James falls short in as far as basketball, you can attribute it to him not being a leader. I mean, there's obvious other problems, but his lack of success has nothing to do with his teammates. His lack of success has everything to do with him not being able to get the best out of his teammates. The fact that his teammates are inconsistent is a reflection on LeBron James. The fact that, I mean, he has Anthony Davis. Again, he has Austin Reeves and Hachimura and some of these other guys who's at Jackson Hayes and all that. These guys have talent. And with the right leader, that team would thrive. With the right leader, that team would thrive. Nothing more would make me happier than if LeBron James retires after this year, they keep the same team in place and just bring in a new superstar. And let's see what the Lakers do. Nothing more would make me happier because, like I said, this is ridiculous that they don't want to address the fact that this is a LeBron James leadership problem. But anyway, we could talk about this for the next for the next hour or more. Shout out to @G_the_Great_One. Thank you so much for the $2 super thanks. Thank you so much for your continued support of the channel. Next up, shout out to @Carrie Patterson 9520. This is coming from my LeBron James stat pads triple-double versus the Wizards. I think that happened last week. He comes through with the $5 super thanks. He says, appreciate your content, bro, but you're wrong on that Kobe take. Kobe has multiple sharp verbal rebukes against players playing for stats and demonstrated several times that stats aren't important to him. Just using 50-point games, Kobe had 5 where he played under 38 minutes. The standout was that he had 62 in only 33 minutes, and the entire Dallas had 61. He chose to sit the entire fourth quarter for that one. Phil asked Brian Shaw to check with Kobe if he wanted to play the fourth quarter to go for 70. Kobe refused to stat pad. He looked up at the scoreboard and saw the big lead and said no, he can do it some other time when they really needed it. That time turned out to be when he went for 81 against the Raptors a few weeks later. Another example was when he had a game in hand to beat KD for the scoring title. Needing to score 38, he was 34 at the time. Rather than go for it, he chose to sit and save himself for the playoffs. That's not a man after stats or accolades, bro. I can agree that Jordan was solely focused on winning. Kobe might have been dual focused on winning and proving he was a bona fide number one. which definitely bit him at times, but it was never about stats or accolades. A shout out to Kerry Patterson 9520. Now, if you go back and actually listen to what I said in the video, I didn't say Kobe was stat padding. I said that the difference between Michael Jordan and Kobe is that Michael Jordan was solely focused on winning. And you gave some examples of where Kobe did sit, but there are plenty of examples where Kobe actually was trying to get as much as he had. Now, I said I don't know the intent behind that. I wasn't calling Kobe a stat pattern. Like I said, it could be the fact that Kobe just got hot and wanted to see how far he could take it. But I was just pointing out the difference is that Michael Jordan, once the game was won, Michael Jordan didn't really care to see how far he could take it. And, again, I just talked to someone else about the 81-point game where they thought Kobe came out of that game early. It's like Kobe played the whole game. With 5 minutes left, the Lakers were almost up 20 points. And even the announcer announced it on the game that said, the announcer said, I have to imagine the only reason Kobe is still in the game is to see if he can get 80. And so, yeah, like I said, there's examples of Kobe not stat padding. I never said Kobe was a stat padder. I was just pointing out the fact that Michael Jordan typically, even if he was hot, even if it was a game where he was hot, he typically was ready to come out whenever the game was secure, and that always wasn't the case with Kobe Bryant. And I think you're right. I think Kobe was focused on winning, but he was also focused on trying to prove that he was at number one. And I think Michael Jordan, in his heart of hearts, felt like he was number one at all times. Like, I don't think Michael Jordan ever doubted him being number one. Michael Jordan simply liked asserting his dominance over people. But shout out to Kerry Patterson 9520. Thank you so much for the $5 super thanks. Thank you so much for your comment. And thank you so very much for supporting the channel. And I guess I need to do a video on Kobe, given this is a couple of days ago, is the anniversary of the tragedy, which I still remember where I was when I heard the news. Still remember how I felt when I heard the news. And so I need to do a video on Kobe Bryant in the next day or so. But anyway, next up, shout out to @Adidas20. This is coming from my LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry are the original gangsters of the NBA. And that video, the original video is on the official NBA YouTube. So if you guys want to go see the OGs of the NBA talk in the most uninspiring way possible, you should go check it out. Anyway, he comes through with the $2 super thanks. He says, look, Stat Patter holds the record for getting his shot blocked by 512 different players over 22 years. How in the hell do you get blocked by that many people? Well, the answer should be obvious, is LeBron James has no bag. When you don't have a variety of ways to get off a shot, it shouldn't be that surprising that you get blocked that many times. Again, this is just something else that whenever I think about LeBron James dunks, outside of the fact that most of the time is wide open because of the soft era that's being big, that exists in the NBA today. Most of the time is wide open, but even when he dunks on someone, most of the time it's on players smaller than him. And when you think about Michael Jordan, who was routinely dunking on centers, when you think about Kobe Bryant, who made it a point to attack the rim and get some vicious dunks on big men. Again, LeBron James just doesn't have a heart like that. He just doesn't have that kind of heart. That takes a different mindset to want to assert your dominance. And that's just something that LeBron James doesn't have. So to see him that he's to see that he's gotten blocked by 512 different players, is not that surprising at all. But shout out to @Adidas20. Thanks so much for the $2 super thanks. Thanks so much for your continued support of the channel. And next up, this is coming from the same OG's video. Shout out to @SwanDaily. Comes through with the $2 super thanks. Says, my favorite part of the video is when Steph said that his favorite part of LeBron's game is his basketball IQ. It's absolutely hilarious how KD and Steph's signature moves were mentioned, but LeBron's wasn't. That's because LeBron doesn't have one. Exactly. Also, averaging 5 turnovers a game shows a lack of IQ. Yeah, facts. Yeah, I saw that part of the video too, and that part made me laugh because you could see Steph Curry was trying to figure out what to say about LeBron. I mean, literally, what are you gonna say? Well, I wish I was 6'8" and 260 pounds so I could run people over and throw out a stiff arm. I wish the refs never called traveling on me. Yeah, that part was pretty hilarious. Shout out to SwanDaily. Thank you so much for the $2 super thanks and the continued support of the channel. And next up is SwanDaily again with another $2 super thanks, and this is coming from the same video. He says, Jordan's promise to Chicago is interesting. Despite his confidence in his abilities, he didn't promise championships from the jump. Why do you think he made such a humble promise? Is it because he didn't want to let his fans down, or because he understood how hard it was to win championships? I think it's because Michael Jordan, I think it's part of the humility of Michael Jordan. And then also I think Michael Jordan just had a good grasp on reality. You know, I think to promise something when you haven't done it before, that's not based in reality. I mean, you know, if you want a perfect example of that, we can think back to not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7. The guy hadn't won one championship. The guy hadn't won one championship, and he's sitting on a stage because, again, he thought he had got the magic formula with this super team. He's sitting on the stage talking about, 7 or 8 championships, and he hadn't won one. I think Michael Jordan, like I said, just had a good grasp on reality and situations to understand that he was embarking on a new journey. He was still finding his way, and he wasn't gonna make a promise about something that he really didn't know anything about at that point. And if you contrast that with, I think it was during their second three-peat, it might have been the very last year. It might have been 98 when they were playing the Pacers, and they were going into Game 7, and Michael Jordan said, "We're gonna win. We're gonna win." He basically said, "We don't have a choice." And at this point, Michael Jordan did know. He did, because he had been through so many trials and tribulations. He understood not only what it takes to win, but he also understood the mental fortitude that you had to have. He also understood the way to lead your team and how to hold them accountable and make them play at its best. He had trust in his teammates because he had built them up in practice and he knew what they were capable of. So at this point, Michael Jordan had enough information. He had enough wisdom to know how he could assert himself and to know that, hey, if I go in here, you know, and we all play our best, which we will, because there's no other choice for me, we will get the game. And so, yeah, I think part of it is Michael Jordan's humility, and part of it is Michael Jordan understanding that, hey, I can't guarantee something that I haven't done before. Like at this point, I don't even know what it takes to do. I know I'm competitive, but there was a lot of things that he had to learn in the process. And, you know, the Detroit Pistons turned the guy into Thanos. They turned Michael Jordan into Thanos because to overcome a team that is willing to injure you, to stop you from winning, you know, once he got past that, once he understood how to toughen his teammates up to get past that, it was no looking back from that, you know. But anyway, shout out to @Swan Daily. Thank you so much for the $2 super thanks. Thank you so very much for your continued support of the channel. And next up, this is coming from my Rob Parker goes off on LeBron James and Anthony Davis for needing more help. Shout out to Alberto Martinez, BQ9NN. He comes through with the $5 super thanks. He says, funny how LeBron complains about the Lakers' current situation by saying he has no help, but in the same breath forces the Lakers to waste a pick drafting Bronny. Exactly. Hiring a coach with no experience and now having the Lakers cut Quincy Olivari when he clearly was deserving of a roster spot. He had the heart and grit necessary to affect winning in games and not only show it in the preseason games by helping the Lakers win 2 games, but also showed it in the G League. All that put together tells me winning isn't a priority and still isn't. So why is LeBron complaining when all this happened because of him? He truly is a bona fide gaslighter. Shout out to @Alberto Martinez BQ9NN because this is nothing but facts. Now, but I will say this. I do think LeBron James wants to win. He just wants to win how he wants to win. He wants his cake and eat it too. He wants to be able to hire his son, hire JJ Ridiculous, and still have the Lakers get him Anthony Edwards, get him SGA, get him Donovan Mitchell. He still expects the Lakers after drafting his son who couldn't play a lick, after drafting JJ Redick who's never coached. He still expects the Lakers to help him bring in some superstars. LeBron wants his cake and eat it too. But shout out to @Alberto Martinez, BQ9NN for this fantastic comment. Thank you so much for the $5 super thanks, and thank you so very much for your continued support of the channel. Next up, shout out to @CP-YX4CI. And this is coming from the video with the original gangsters, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Stephen Curry. He comes through with the $15 super thanks. He says, I stopped watching around 429 of the uncut version of the video when LeBron James said he has earned his respect. It's just sad in reality. All 3 of them had somewhat contributed to the demolition of the league while at the same time talking about their accomplishment. I guess that's all you can do when you are competing in a non-competitive league. Glaze yourself all over the place just so you can legitimize your fabricated legacy. Honestly, I do not know who else will actually sit down and listen to the entire video other than some young, impressionable fans or some really diehard super fans like LeBron James fanboys. I haven't watched the whole video. And there's no way I could unless I was doing it simply for content. But again, it was nothing insightful. I couldn't really, well, let me just say this. I can't think of one modern player who I enjoy listening to interviews with. It's just all self-praising. What else can we say about this? It's absolutely terrible. But yeah, it's like that's facts. They all three have contributed to the demolition of the league in some form or another. And you know, LeBron James saying he's earned his respect. If you have to say it, LeBron. LeBron James, have you not learned a thing? If you have to say you're the GOAT, if you have to say you've earned respect, if you have to talk about how much you've done for the NBA, chances are you haven't done what you thought. Last but not least, shout out to @SwanDaily one more time. This is coming from my They Never Say This About LeBron James video. And he comes through with the $2 super thanks. He says, to be honest, I've been watching less and less LeBron videos in the last few weeks because I've been getting too tired. The reason I regularly tune into your channel is because of your humor and your uncommon sense on the topic. It's really infuriating to hear about a mid basketball team that can never take accountability for their L's. Let's talk about the Celtics, Thunders. Let's talk about the Cavs, Thunders, Celtics, Rockets, etc. Shout out to @SwanDaily coming through with the $2 super thanks. And like I said, thank you so much for your continued support of the channel. And yeah, you know, this is something that, unfortunately, I will say is probably not going to be the case. What I'm really interested in is when LeBron James retires. When this guy finally gets out of the league, are they going to manufacture another superstar? Are they going to pick another guy to be the face of the league and basically, you know, do whatever they can to convince everyone that he's as good as they say? Or will they actually even it out and let the face of the league emerge? Let the face of the league emerge from competitiveness. The guy who stands out, the guy who shows that he has earned the face of the league. And so, because other than that, like I said, I don't know if I think we're in a time where everything is about the flash. You know, everything is about the flash and the praise, that I don't know if substance is ever going to be the baseline for sports and entertainment, at least in our lifetime. I'm hoping it will be, but to me, it takes, unless it's built on substance, we're not going to get this evenness to where we actually hear about all of the teams. It's like we definitely should be hearing more about the Cavs. But back in the day, I felt like, you know, the Bulls was a thing, but the Bulls wasn't, if you talk about the network, the Bulls wasn't dominating the network like LeBron James is. Like, if you wanted to see the most of the Bulls games, then you better tune into WGN. But as far as the other channels, you know, you could catch all kinds of games on these other channels. The Bulls weren't dominating all of the network. Michael Jordan wasn't dominating all of the press. Again, unlike the Deer, and this is not by accident. This is the chosen one. This is the manufactured one. This is not a mistake. So yeah, I don't know if we're gonna get back to the days to where we're seeing other teams and superstars kind of get a fair shake in the spotlight. But anyway, thank you, each and every one of you, for continuing to support the channel. And I have to do this now because I forgot to do it at the beginning of the video. So really quick, I want to thank all of the channel members. Shout out to Gary, aka G the Great One. Shout out to Dr. Les Barrett. Shout out to Dwayne S. Honor. Shout out to Thanos Snap Feminism. Shout out to Keith Brazel. Shout out to Charles Hooker. Shout out to In the Groove 56. Shout out to Vernon Lee Warren. Shout out to Wizman Ballin. And shout out to Great Juice. Thank you all so much for becoming members of the channel. Thank you all so much for continuing to support the channel. And as I say after every video like this, please continue to support all of the content creators who bring you content with integrity. Shout out to Angry Old Hoops. Shout out to Sports and Fitness Rants. Shout out to Phenomenal Fitness. Before I forget, shout out to Self Research Basketball Facts. Hey, fanboys, you guys like numbers so much, go over there. He got plenty of numbers for you, but you're not gonna like it. Still, I promise. They're not numbers that prove your king is the GOAT. Shout out to Dreamers Pro and Too Raw for Sports and Sports Tea and Man Down Sports. Shout out to Uncut Hoops. Shout out to Scap Attack. Shout out to Ticket TV. Shout out to Kwame Brown. Shout out to 93 Zay. Shout out to Brandon Love Sports. And anybody else who I may have forgotten, please drop them in the comments. But again, please continue to support these channels. It is very important. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, if nothing else, it is documented proof of what the fans have been saying in the NBA. So if years from later the NBA collapsed, they can't say we didn't try to tell them. They can't say we didn't tell. They can't say that we didn't express our displeasure for the game. They can't say that we didn't say, hey, look, it's too soft now. They can't say that we didn't say, hey, look, stop telling us that these stars are so great when we're not seeing this, because we've seen greatness before. We know what it looks like. So if nothing else, it is documented proof of what the real fans of the game have been saying. So again, if the NBA fails in the future, they can't say that nobody tried to warn them. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. You all have a truly, truly fantastic day, and I'll see you next time. All right.